Did you know at this very moment someone is on Amazon and Etsy actively looking for a quality coloring and activity book to add to their shopping cart? The only question is, will it be yours? Since you're listening to this podcast, hence the name of the show, it's pretty safe to assume that you have a keen interest in creating and selling your first or next coloring book. And it's for that reason I want to assure you you're in the right place. And I'd like to help you make it a reality by inviting you to check out the Coloring Book Creator Mentor Program, the first of its kind complete A to Z course that features live weekly coaching, resources, templates, and an extremely supportive online community, all designed to assure that you create a standout in-demand coloring book that you'll actually enjoy creating, promoting, and selling. Imagine the feeling of knowing somewhere in the world someone is adding your beautiful new book to their shopping cart, investing in a piece of your creativity. Enrollment is open and you can get started by going to coloringbookcreatorcourse.com. That's coloringbookcreatorcourse.com. You're listening to the Coloring Book Creator Podcast, episode 25. And in this episode, I'm titling Wellness Check-In. Are you taking care of yourself? Ways to take care of yourself as you grow your creator's business. Stay tuned. Hello, it's Rodney Washington, creator of the Coloring Book Creator Podcast, and I am really excited and I should say more inspired to bring you this episode, and I'll tell you what inspired it. Recently, I was listening to a podcast episode by a pioneer in the online business space that was talking about his decision to take a 90-day sabbatical from his business. He was talking about what predicated his decision to take this sabbatical, the things that he was dealing with or struggling with that alerted him that it was time for him to take a step back and take a break. Specifically, he was speaking about burnout. He has been in business for as long as I've known about online business. I want to say at least 11, 12 years, consistently producing a podcast. And I've seen him evolve from sort of the very, very beginning. His business focuses specifically helping people use Facebook advertising to grow their business. That was how he started. He's now broadened the scope of that conversation a lot more over the last several years. I know for sure at least 10 years, probably closer to 12. So I was listening to his podcast episode today, and he was talking about his decision to take a sabbatical. And again, what predicated the decision was because of the struggles that he's been experiencing with headaches and anxiety and irritability and other issues that were going on for him. And so he made the decision to take a break to regroup himself and recoup himself. That's what inspired the episode. Now, to be clear, I'm not necessarily talking about or why I create this episode is to recommend or suggest to you that you take a sabbatical, whatever that may mean for you. But again, there's all sorts of definitions for a sabbatical in terms of time. It can be months like what this gentleman's doing, or it could be, a day, an afternoon. The time is up to you, is whatever works for you. Regardless of all of that, the point I want to make is that his sort of testimony, if you will, inspired me creating this episode because in my life personally, I know of at least 3 people that are dealing with everything from depression to high levels of anxiety to losing a loved one to learning about a devastating disease that they have. And it just got me thinking a lot about the importance and the necessity and the requirement of some sort of a self-care practice, more specifically about emphasizing wellness and having a self-care plan. Because again, what I know for certain that when we're not well, whatever that may mean, be it emotionally, physically, or whatever, it's going to impact the decisions that we make, even if we don't necessarily feel, and I'm using air quotes here, feel sick. but you don't have to necessarily feel a deterioration in your body to know that things aren't lining up for you. You're not aligned. So that's why I felt this was too much going on. And again, all of this has happened with people in my life that I know in the last 3 or 4 days as I'm recording this. So I felt I wanted to really do an episode around this and also share a little bit about my own journey as to why I'm even here today, even doing any of this. But I want to talk about, again, why taking care of ourselves is essential to making aligned decisions. Because if we're coming from a place of emotional fatigue, which leads to depression and desperation, it's gonna be make it far more challenging to make decisions from a place of inspiration. A lot of us don't always realize that because we're so used to the American work ethic is go, 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 and work through the pain and don't stop, and slowing down is weakness, and so on and so forth, and don't talk about your problems and keep everything to yourself and all of this. And it's created an environment of struggle, internal struggle and suffering, which is really unnecessary. But we as individuals have to spearhead and be the champion for our own wellness, our own self-care. So there are going to be some practical things I'm going to share with you today. There are going to be some things that, if nothing more, I want you to walk away from this episode feeling more like, okay, I'm not weak or losing my mind or whatever because I've been feeling a certain way for a while and I don't exactly know what it is. Maybe something that I share today will help. If one thing I share today opens up your mind to starting to think about things differently, then it will shift how you feel, which then will impact the decisions that you make. So I'll wrap this up kind of as I go through what I'm going to share with you today, but I wanted to just let you know that's the premise of why this episode is happening. So with that said, really briefly, I'll share my own journey into working through some issues and my own ongoing journey, because trust me, what I'm going to say, I've got quite a ways still to go. But because as long as I'm alive, it's going to be a journey that's going to continue to happen and unfold. There's not some magical space where it's like, oh, okay, all is well, and the doves come out and start flitting around and, like a Walt Disney movie. So anyway, for myself, I'll just say that one of the things that I have found in the business coaching, online coaching, course creation world, so to speak, is that if we just learn a different strategy or a different tactic or a different way to do something, that it's going to make all the pieces come together. And to an extent, that does have some truth in it. But this is what I also know from personal experience, having worked as a business support admin person, now moving into the realm of coaching and supporting creative entrepreneurs. No amount of business coaching, courses, classes, books, or whatever are going to help you process the core of what is going on with all of us to some extent. And I'm being very candid here, is unresolved trauma in our lives, whatever that particular situation was. Whatever has happened in our lives impacts how we feel, how we interpret the world, and how we feel about ourselves and our place in the world. And those feelings then impact our decisions. So it would make sense to start to explore, examine, however that needs to happen, through journaling, which is something I recommend highly, through potentially checking in with some kind of therapy of some sort, or whatever practice that you have to help you process those tough places in our lives that maybe it never was given the opportunity to address. Because this is what I know and why I'm bringing this up and the connection that's being made and why I'm specifically speaking about this in regards to working with a business mentor or coach or anything of that nature. If whatever that is for us that's not addressed, impacts the decisions that we make. And more to the point, it impacts the feelings that we have about ourselves. And those feelings we have about ourselves impacts our decisions, and our decisions dictate our actions, and those actions dictate our results. So there could be something that you choose to do that seems like it's the best decision to make in regards to, say, working with someone. And maybe it's a course that you purchase or something like that, but you find yourself never able to really get the work done, or you're struggling with following through, or you kind of get started, but you kind of pull back. If those are things that are going on, there's something undercurrent going on there that is creating the environment where you feel a way about something, and you may not know exactly what that is. A lot of times it comes down to a worthiness issue. Again, I'm not picking on any particular person or anything of that nature, or trying to call out, I should say, any particular person. I have it. We all have some kind of trauma in our life. Whatever that is, if that's still there and it's not been examined and worked to clear as best as possibly can, it does impact how we feel about ourselves and how we feel about our place in the world. And as a result of that feeling, then we make decisions that impact the feelings that we have, that then impact the actions that we take or not take. So using me as an example, I've invested thousands of dollars in courses and mentors and things of that nature, and I've gotten really amazing advice and a lot of really good content. But if I find myself losing steam, I find myself kind of in, but not really, sort of the toes in, but not really going full foot, so to speak. As a part of my own work, and again, to be clear, I'm by no means 100%, but I've still got a lot of work to do. But as a part of my own clarity, I was working with a therapist that I had years ago, and I likened it to living my life with one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake. And I'm doing both simultaneously. If you've driven a car, you know that if you've got your foot on both, you're either moving or you're stopping. You're moving or you're stopping. Whichever one is getting the most pressure in terms of your foot pushing on that particular pedal is going to impact what is happening. So if I'm applying more pressure to the gas pedal, the car is going to move. If I now switch that and apply more pressure to the brake pedal, the car is going to slow. And obviously, if I'm doing both simultaneously, what's happening here is we're jerking and we're stopping and we're sputtering and we're moving, but not really. When I was able to get that level of clarity about how I was sort of living my life in the world and sort of processing things, having the revelation was one thing, but knowing how to act on it was another matter altogether. But it gave me a point of reference for when I was doing things that I thought I should be doing. It gave me that point of reference. If there was something I felt like I should be doing, but on some level, my heart just wasn't exactly in it, I would find myself applying more pressure to the brake. I would find myself pulling back a little bit more. I start to, I won't do that today. It's okay. I'll liken it to podcasting. Technically, this is my fourth podcast. I started podcasting when podcasting wasn't even really a thing. And each time I did it for a while, got kind of excited, was sort of into it, but then I stopped. Just stopped. And then I'd maybe try to resurrect it again, but then I'd stop. And the last podcast I had, I actually stopped publishing it in 2019. It's still up, but again, I haven't published anything in 2019. But then when I created the Coloring Book Creator Program, I knew as I was developing that program with my members, I wanted to create a podcast to feature them. So one of the things that I give all of my members when their book is published, I interview them for the show. That way, that's their first piece of sort of publicity that they can leverage to get more opportunities. I can say this now being technically my fourth podcast, I have never felt more resolute in something more clear about something. There's none of that pressure on me that I've got to get an episode out. It just feels like this is something I want to do. I get excited about the shows I'm creating and developing and bringing to you. And this particular season of my life has a strong feeling of rightness to me. So there is no, oh, what am I going to record today? God, I have no idea what I'm going to record today. In the past, it kind of felt like that for me. Although it just never really clicked. It never really felt quite right. And this one was almost more of an afterthought than a plan. I was in the middle of developing the Publish and Promote program, which eventually turned into Coloring Bookpreneur Society. And it was in the Publish and Promote section of the course that I developed and rolled into the Coloring Bookpreneur Society that the inspiration, and I emphasize the word inspiration, came to me to do this podcast. So the minute that I made that connection, that this is something that I will just do. To be fully transparent, I started the podcast in October last year. I actually didn't put an episode out in December of 2022 because there was so much going on with the second cohort of the program. A lot of my students were having a lot of issues dealing with Amazon and trying to get their books published on Amazon. December can be a weird month anyway. So there was so much going on. I didn't have any bandwidth to really do an episode of the podcast. And I could have taken that and said, okay, I'll probably end up dropping this too. But I never even thought that. I just felt, actually, the month of December got away from me before I realized it was January. And I looked back and I went, oh, that's right. I didn't do an episode in December. So I just picked it back up again and I did some episodes before I went on vacation. And then since I've been back, I've been consistently at it. And as I'm recording this, I'm 20 away from 800 downloads. So I'm really excited about that. But again, I digress. This was a level of commitment that came from a feeling of rightness about it. And I didn't get in my head about, oh, you've done this before, you never kept it up, so you're going to do this one again. That's never even occurred to me this time around. So I say it all to say is that understanding why we're doing something and being clear about why we're doing something and feeling a sense of rightness about what we're doing something impacts our decisions and our actions. And I can say, rolling back to how this show even exists and everything that's come from it, it all came from the result of me getting that deeper work done, working with a professional to help me unpack how I was being in the world and how I was thinking about myself. And it was that getting clear about that driving with one foot on the gas, one foot on the brake analogy that helped me to understand, oh, this is what I do. And what does that say? What does that mean? To me, the interpretation of that was, I want to move forward, but I'm still not 100% sure if I can do it or if I'm right for it or if it's going to happen. And if it doesn't happen, how am I going to feel about it? Am I going to get depressed about it or whatever the case may be? And when I realized that, going back to the car analogy, if I'm trying to get to one side, like I'm trying to go home and I'm on the opposite side of town, there is no way I'm going to get home in my car if I'm driving with one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake and I'm pressing both simultaneously. It's never going to happen. I'm going to damage the car. I'm going to delay myself. I'm going to frustrate myself because I'm stopping and starting. So in my understanding that simple analogy, I made the decision with everything I'm now doing with the membership, with the community, with the authors I've helped to get their coloring books published, with this podcast, with everything I'm doing, there's no need to have my foot on the brake. I'm full on the gas. Now, I may slow down a little bit from time to time, but I'm still with my foot on the gas. And if something comes up along the way that makes me come to a bit of a slowdown or a stop, it's only because there's a correction that needs to happen. It's the same as if I'm driving. If something happens on the road that blocks my movement, I have to then pivot, course correct, go down another street, turn another way, turn around and go back, make a couple of blocks and then circle back the other way. The point I'm trying to make is once I got clear about that way of processing how I do things when I want something in my life, helped me to then understand, oh, I'm driving with one foot on the gas and one foot on the brake, but I'm not going to get where I want to go if I'm doing that. Yes, I know the brakes are important, and yes, there are going to be moments I need to stop, but I still keep moving. This is the power of checking in with yourself. Now, again, I personally am a strong advocate for getting some kind of counseling of some sort, whatever that may mean. There was a particular online service I use called BetterHelp. I'll put it in the show notes. I'm not endorsing them. I'm not affiliate paid by them. I'm just telling you it's who I found. I discovered BetterHelp on a podcast of someone else's show. The timing of it was perfect because I was in the process of grieving the loss of my father, which I talk about in the inaugural episode of this podcast. And I was not sleeping, not realizing that I was grieving. I was in depression. I was dealing with a lot of emotional stuff. And it was going back in and sort of doing that work, that inner work that helped me to process what was going on. And I was able to clear some things up for myself so that I could move forward. And as a result of that, out of that work, I was able to create the coloring book that I did a few months after my therapy. And that book and what the book was about, which is the title of Never Too Late to Make It Happen. That was inspired by the feelings that came up for me as I was doing my inner work. So while I think there's some great resources out there for us as entrepreneurs, I have seen it over and over again, many entrepreneurs only investing in business coaching, only investing in courses and programs, but never investing in the inner work that needs to happen to help you implement the other things that you're investing in. And that's the core of what I want to say to you here. I'm not saying don't hire a business coach. I'm not saying don't buy a course. I'm not saying don't sign up for a membership. I'm not saying don't buy a business book. But if you are in that start and stop, one foot on the gas, one foot on the brake, and you don't understand why you're doing it, then this is the time to start looking at doing some deeper inner work, whether that's hiring a therapist or going to a counselor or journaling or a combination of all of the three, because there's something going on there as to why you're doing it. So again, let me be clear. I'm not saying that don't have business support, but if you're only investing in business support and you're still not getting results, you're still not gaining traction, you're finding yourself being in this fight or flight, start or stop situation, look at why you're doing that. Look at the deeper reason why you're doing that. And with that said, that does not mean that your business coach, mentor, or book or whatever is supposed to help you figure that out. Their job is to help you get in action on the things you need to get in action on to get the result that you're paying for. Whether that's how to run a Facebook ad, whether that's how to write a press release, whether that's how to develop your book, whether that's how to write copy for your sales page, whether that's how to do an Instagram post or whatever, build a blog, get on a podcast, whatever. That's what their job is, to help you do the thing that you're paying for, not work through your unresolved issues. So that's the number one reason why I want to do this episode today, because I've seen so many people spend and invest thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on all types of business related things, but they've never done the internal work. And so they're still struggling years later. I want us to be whole, whatever that means for us. And whatever helps us get there, I highly encourage doing that, whatever that means. So what I want to do is I wanted to moving a little forward and move into asking you if you have a wellness self-care plan. These are some tips or suggestions or things to think about as you're developing that plan for yourself. one of the things, because everyone listening to this has an interest in entrepreneurial pursuit of some sort as it relates to, in this case, your book publishing business, coloring book publishing business. So again, you are somehow or another in business. So one of the things I'm going to suggest is, or ask you, should I say, is, are you taking time away from your business just to get out of the house, get away from your computer, put the phone away and just be? Are you taking time for that? Are you getting regular body work or any kind of body work? And that could mean massage. That could mean a manicure, a pedicure, or a facial. Are you doing something physical? Are you going for walks? Are you going for hikes? Are you riding your bike? Are you swimming? Are you doing something to get physical in your body? This is a big one. The next one. Do you take time to sit still in silence? No radio, no music, no podcasts, nothing. Just sitting still and being quiet. It can be for a minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it is. Maybe you have a cup of tea or coffee or something like that and just sit still in silence. This next one is chatting to a friend. Do you have friends that you can chat with about anything but business? Now, why is that? Well, let me finish that statement and then I'll go into why anything about but business. So, can you chat with a friend about anything but business, even if that friend, and yes, I'm talking about you, even if that friend is you, meaning you're talking to yourself? Because here's the deal. Who listens to you more than you? Think about that. Who listens to you more than you? So again, it's not that you quote unquote talk to yourself, but rather, are you listening to what you're saying to yourself? We go around with so many thoughts in our head, we don't even realize what we're saying to ourselves, but we're reacting to it and we're making decisions about how we feel about it. And those decisions are impacting our actions or lack thereof. So when I say chat with a friend, and why I specifically say about anything but business, is that we're in our business every day making decisions. But again, we are the hub of the business. We're the core, the foundation of it. If you're talking or thinking about the business, then you're thinking about what the business needs. But again, you're the core, you're the hub. It all stems from you. So if you're chatting with a friend, whether it's another person or with yourself, and you're only talking about the business needs, that's still not self-care. That's not asking you what you need for yourself. And maybe in those moments of sitting in silence, that's when you start to think, it's been a while since I've done something physical. It's been a while since I've actually got off the computer and out of the house. It's been a while since I wasn't sitting there with the phone in my hand like a zombie mindlessly scrolling. It's been a while since I've done any of that, because it's in those moments of silence that the inspiration comes for everything in your life, including what the business needs. Now, if you're speaking with a friend, like another human being, another person, find other things to talk about than your business. And I know it's tempting and it can be difficult because when you're an entrepreneur, you're all in with your business. But the reality of it is that, again, it all stems from us. It all stems from us. So when you check in with someone and you ask how you're doing, and you're talking about just life, just things that are coming up, just like I had this revelation about something or whatever that may be, because to go into the business conversation means you're talking about that entity's needs. You're not talking about your needs. So that's why I say, if you're going to talk to a friend, i.e., even yourself, talk about anything else but the business, because it's in that I feel you will find what it is that you need for yourself in order for you to be able to show up better in all areas of your life, including your business. So the question becomes in, what do you talk about? You can talk about your dreams. You can talk about how you're feeling. You can talk about a nonfiction book that you're reading. not a business book. You can talk about a movie or Netflix series that you just finished watching. Whatever it is, those personal conversations or journal entries, again, this can be journal entries as well. This, again, is about being with yourself, talking to yourself. It's in those moments that it can bring up things. Now, in regards to discussing it with a friend or a family member, it depends upon who you're talking to. And you yourself have to know who you're talking to and how equipped or available they are to help you process things. The issue with talking to people who, quote unquote, I'm using air quotes here, know us, is that they can feel that they know us. Not that that's a bad thing, but if you're talking to someone that, first of all, is more invested unconsciously in most instances in trying to diagnose and tell you what to do instead of listening to you and being a good listener, that's not going to always help you process. Because the thing about therapy, which I love, is that you get the answers by listening to what you're saying. It's not about someone telling you what to do. I've had to have some transitions in some relationships personally with certain people in my life that were more invested in telling me what to do or trying to fix it than listening to what I'm saying. Because again, it's not about that person fixing you. Even the therapist, if you choose to, or a counselor, about them fixing you. It's about you listening to what you're saying. That's why I say talking to yourself. Whether that's talking to yourself with no one in the room, whether that's talking to yourself in your journal and you're writing it, or you're talking to yourself even in a therapy session, you're still revealing things and having those revelations and aha moments. And those things only happen when you're speaking. So in terms of another person with you that's maybe close to you personally, some people, not maliciously, but are not capable of holding space for someone, they are more invested in them being heard and them trying to fix you than you actually having the moment of revelation for yourself. And that's what a trained therapist can help you do. So again, if it's within your means to do so, do check out whatever source you do. If it's BetterHelp, fine. If it's someone else, I don't have any investment in that in terms of telling you where to go. With that said, other things I recommend is investing in a good journal, something that feels good to hold in your hand, something that feels kind of sacred, and something that you really would enjoy, spending time with. I also feel that even though I'm much more technologically inclined, like I like to write things on my iPhone or whatever, the feeling of hand to paper and the movement, like a coloring book, is very therapeutic in and of itself, and it inspires reflection. Keep in mind when you're journaling what's coming up for you and how you're feeling, and that you can journal those feelings in addition to maybe coloring, if that's what you want to do, to help you process those feelings. I've said it numerous times here. Feelings impact decisions. So this is something else to look at too when you're journaling, is ask yourself, whenever I think about doing that thing, whatever that may be, what's coming up for me? And when I think about it, how does that make me feel? I'll say it again. When you're trying to get yourself to do something that you've not been able to get yourself to either do, again, or stay consistent with, remember the analogy, one foot on the gas, one foot on the brake. Whenever you think about that, whatever that may be, getting your book finished or reaching out to that podcaster or contacting that business that can maybe have you come in and do a color and sip or whatever. Ask yourself, when I think about doing that thing, that action, what's coming up for me? And how does that make me feel? Because again, feelings impact decisions. With that being said, we also have to become comfortable with releasing outcomes. We have to get comfortable with releasing specific outcomes. For example, you can send that email to a contact, but then nobody responds or opens the email. We can publish our book, but no one reviews it or buys it, or we sell as many copies as we hoped. We can send that pitch and get no response. The question becomes, is how do you feel as a result of those scenarios? Because how you feel about no one buying the book, or the book sales aren't as much as you want, or the email you sent doesn't get open, or no one responds to it, or the pitch gets no response, or you approach a business and no one has any interest in what you're doing. How you feel about that, how you interpret that, then impacts your decision. And it impacts future decisions that you might make. That's where it can come into, well, I tried that, it didn't work. If you tried it one time, it didn't work, perhaps it was the wrong person. It wasn't the right person, I should say. Then you try it again. And you try it again. And you try it again. The purpose here is not that you tried. You didn't try, you did it. You didn't get the response you wanted. It's how you interpret it. That's how you keep moving forward. This is what I know for certain. Learning how to process and work through these feelings is going to have such a dramatic impact on your life. I was thinking about myself again as I was writing out the outline for this episode. And I'm speaking from the heart right now. I'm 59 years old at the time I'm recording this. God willing, I'll be 60 in a few months. And once I got clear about that 1 foot on the gas, 1 foot on the brake thing, and I looked back over the last 50 something years of my life and looked at how that pattern influenced numerous choices in my life, numerous decisions in my life, there was a part of it that actually became sobering. And I will admit, a little depressing, because the capability has always been there, but I just never trusted myself enough to believe that I could have it. I can say this examination process, especially as we're getting older, it can be a little sobering. And I will admit very freely, once I had the revelation, it made me feel like I robbed myself of years of experiences. And again, like I said, it was sobering. But I also had to also take responsibility and understand that no one did it but me. And that unpacking this revelation then freed me to be able to know that now I'm making decisions consciously. I'm not just running on a pattern that I didn't fully understand why I had the pattern. Once I got clear about that and understood that, and I'm still processing it, that I'm now able to make decisions from a place of awareness and take action. And if I start feeling at any point in my journey here that I'm sort of applying the brake when I don't kind of need to be right now, I can make a conscious decision to ease off the brake and allow the gas to get more attention. And then when it's time to slow down, reposition, pivot if necessary, then I can use the brake as a tool to help me do that. It's not about either or. It's about using both in a way that when the gas needs to be applied, the gas is applied. When the brake needs to be applied, the brake needs to be applied. But both are to be used in concert, not one over the other. Because if you heard the term like a bull in a china shop, you can run through life causing all kind of wreckage and carnage in the process and be just as damaging as if you sit on the sidelines and do nothing. So both have a purpose, is what I'm trying to say. The bottom line is it's not about feeling sad or feeling bad about your status, no matter where it is. It's about you getting clear and understanding what you're doing so that you can now make decisions from that more awakened and more aligned place. So what I can say is, whatever it is you choose to do, as you're listening to this, I encourage you to find whatever that is, journaling, counseling, therapy, whatever, a friend that's a good listener, not just a talker, to help you process what's coming up for you, even if that friend is you. I encourage you to find that for yourself. The next thing is getting clearer about being inspired and taking action on things. There's a saying that I think Tony Robbins says this, that success leaves clues. Now, everyone's journey is different. So I don't say, go do exactly what that person did and you'll get the same result, because we all know there's all kinds of nuances and circumstances and things happening for people that, what Tony Robbins could go after and what I go after, we can get completely different results, even if I do exactly what Tony did. So I'm never going to sit there and say that you just follow exactly what he did or she did, you're going to get the same result. And no, everyone's different. Everyone's viewpoint and place in the world is different. And the world's reaction to you is different. So with that said, I just want to be really clear that I'm not suggesting that at all. What I am saying, as you're looking for sort of that inspiration touch point, find that person that really inspires you by their achievement, whatever that may be, whether you find that person on a podcast or YouTube. Those are two great places to find people who are at a level that you'd like to be at. Whatever it is, it's not about the business or publishing a book, but whatever it is. And really spend some time studying their behavior, what they're doing, but more to the point, how they're being. Because it's in examining that, if we can find a way to transpose that onto how we feel. As I'm recording this, I've got a really good friend of mine right now that I've had for years that's in Paris. And Paris is on my bucket list this year for my 60th birthday to go to Paris. And he's been sending me pictures, and we've talked about this for years. It's a lifelong dream of mine I've had since I was a teenager to go. I've not yet been. It is a bit of, bittersweet because he's been twice and I've never been once. But anyway, I can look at those pictures and take the position, oh, he gets to go and I don't get to go, and what, blah, 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 whatever. Or I can look at those pictures and I can look at other things about Paris and I can visualize myself being there. As I'm watching a movie, I can see myself going to that restaurant or going to that bakery or going to that park or going to that museum. And if I can bring that into my awareness from a place of feeling like it's like to be there, that's going to inspire my commitment to getting there. That's going to inspire my commitment to start researching the plane tickets. That's going to inspire my commitment to set the dates. That's going to inspire my commitment to find my place to stay when I'm visiting. All of that. It's not that we achieve something the way someone else is achieving it, because, for an example, in this scenario, my friend's experience of Paris, that he's there now, and my experience coming up is going to be different in many respects because we're different people. But if I can sort of infuse that energy and feel what it's going to be like once I say I'm there and I see myself sitting on that bench and eating that sandwich in the park and going up the Eiffel Tower and walking around taking pictures with my iPhone and all of this fun stuff. If I see myself and feel myself doing that, that's going to keep me in action. What I'm saying to you is we need to focus on not just the accomplishment, but the feeling, emphasis on the feeling. Because when you do that, and then you're committing yourself to the experience, you'll make decisions that will support the physical manifestation of that vision or that dream. Let me repeat that again. When you can fuse yourself into that, when you're watching that YouTube video or you're listening to that podcaster and they're telling you about their story and their accomplishment, if you can feel yourself being the one being interviewed on that podcast, or see yourself in that video talking about that subject that you wish that you were talking about or knew you could talk about. If you see yourself in that car, if you see yourself in that place, if you see yourself in this house, and you can feel that, it's going to impact how you feel, which impacts your decisions. When you're able to do that, you're really supporting this physical manifestation. And I will add this on to that. Whenever you get that feeling, always say, this or something better. This or something better. Whatever this is that you want, add this on at the end. This is what I want or something better. And if you believe in a higher power, you can also add on in accordance with God's will for my life and my purpose. So this or something better, if you believe in a higher power, in accordance with God's will for my life and my purpose. All righty. So I'm going to wrap it there, but I am going to share with you a variety of resources inside of the show notes here. I'd love you to take a look at. One is an amazing video with the comedian SNL alumni Leslie Jones. This was a video I've seen numerous times on Instagram. I think it's a fantastic mindset shift that I would be remiss in you not knowing about it and seeing it. The other one is the podcast interview that I saw that inspired this episode. I've got a link in there to BetterHelp. If you want to check that, if you're thinking about maybe hiring someone to help you process, be a facilitator for you. I've also got a link to episode 22, which is the previous episode on how to make your first 1K or more with coloring books without relying solely on Amazon. Now, I don't know if you listened to that episode yet, but I made an offer on that episode to give you your first 1K 30-day profit planner. It's a downloadable tool sheet that I actually only give to members of the Coloring Bookpreneur Society. And if you'd like to get a copy of this worksheet, it's like a 2-page worksheet. DM me on Instagram and or on Facebook Messenger and say first 1K, and I'll know that's what you want, and I'll send that planner over to you. In the planner, I walk you through how to set a monthly intention for your business and map out the steps for its achievement. Again, this is something that I only give to Coloring Bookpreneur Society members, which is a live monthly coaching and mentoring program that I offer to people that want to either publish their first or next coloring book and or want to launch or relaunch it in the right way. So again, this is a program that I have, and you're interested in learning more about that, DM me about that either on Instagram or Facebook Messenger, and you can say society in the comment, and I'll know that you want to know more about the Coloring Bookpreneur Society. And actually, I can send you links to both. All righty. So again, if you want to just get access to the first 1K profit planner, DM me on Instagram or Facebook and say first 1K, and or to get the planner and get more information about the Coloring Bookpreneur Society membership, just say the word society, DM that, and I'll send that over to you. So with that said, I'm going to wrap this up because I didn't mean for this to go as long as it did, but I just felt there was a lot there I wanted to unpack, and I wanted to share it with you. I will leave you with this, though. Doing what we do, being creative entrepreneurs, the journey gets hard. And yes, sometimes it gets lonely. And that's why it's so critically important that we practice self-care. We must commit ourselves to wellness and self-care because, again, as I said a moment ago, we're the hub. Everything stems from us. And if we're not well and feeling inspired and invigorated, how can we give to others? So with that said, I hope that you found something valuable today, something that inspired you to take action on your behalf. And if I can support you in any way, I would love it if you would DM and share that with me. I'll be more than happy. I respond to all the DMs that I get. So if you DM me, I will respond to you. Or you can join my free Facebook group called the Coloring Book Creator Live and leave a comment there. Again, I'll put the link in the show notes as well. And lastly, before I wrap, if you found value in in the podcast period, not just today's episode, but any episodes you listen to, I would so appreciate if you leave a thoughtful review. Your reviews help more people discover the show, which helps improve the rankings, et cetera, et cetera. So again, if you could leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts, Spotify, iTunes, I think it's on Google Podcasts now. It's in a variety of places. If you can leave a review there, I would so appreciate it. All righty. So with that said, I'm Rodney Washington, your host, signing off. Thank you, and I'll catch you on the next episode. Have a good day. Thank you so much for listening and supporting the show. There are a lot of podcasts you could be listening to, and I just want to take a moment to say thank you because I don't take your time for granted. Before you go, I'd like to ask if you found the interview you just heard valuable, that you share the show. You know, the more listeners means more creators like you can have the tools and resources and inspiration to create beautiful, meaningful coloring and activity books. Lastly, if you or someone you know has been thinking about creating a book, invite them to check out a special on-demand training where I'll help future authors uncover a sellable coloring book idea. Think of it like an idea jumpstarter kit for finding, validating, and developing your first or next coloring book idea, and it can be yours for just $10. You can snag your copy at coloringbookidea.com.